Hi everyone, and welcome to Action Bullet Points. So today is going to be very technical, and we're going to be covering springs, malfunctions, what have you. If it's too boring for you, stop watching right now. Otherwise, let's dive into this. And initially, I was planning to cover 1911 and the Glock because these are the two platforms I use for competition right now. And it just was shaping up to be a very lengthy episode, so decided to stick with the Glock because this is by far my favorite platform, and it's probably a bit easier to explain. But first things first, disclaimer: any division I will be talking about today is specific to NRA action. So if you're an IPSC shooter and you think I'm out of my mind presenting you Glock 34 as a production gun, for NRA action, that kind of is. If you're not sure, watch that episode. And the other thing, any firearm I will be presenting today has been safety checked by me to save me time. With no further ado, I'm guilty. I made a rookie mistake of not following the guidance on when to change the springs. But first things first, what happened is I started getting light strikes, and they were very inconsistent. I just couldn't figure out what is causing it. And I thought initially that was the debris and firing pin probably is getting caught on something. So I took gun apart, both guns actually, both my Glock 34s, the one that I use for production division, and the other 34 that I use for production optics division with optics on top, obviously. So I've been taking that gun apart, and I've been going through every nook and cranny, trying to clean it as much as I could, and it would help for maybe one match. But that was about it for about 400 rounds. And then again, the light strike would reappear. And for the life of me, couldn't work out what's wrong with it. Tried everything under the sun, and then it just occurred to me, I never ever changed the springs. Actually, incorrect. When I first got both guns on day one, I swapped out the factory firing pin spring and the firing block spring with M&Tech competition kits, spring kit for Glock 34 Gen 5. However, I left stock standard recoil spring, and it worked really well for me. But what I realized, and I'll leave specifically a link to that video, that light strikes are only caused by the striker spring or the firing pin spring. They're also caused by the recoil spring. And why that is, let me show you. It's actually quite fascinating. So the way the Glock works, so when you fire that round and the slide goes back and I'll lock it in place, you're firing, the recoil spring is sitting here and it's getting compressed. And the recoil spring is something when your gun is functioning normally, there runs in the magazine. So what will happen, it will not stick like this. It will go back. It will charge, compress, and lock in place your firing pin or striker spring. But at the same time, what's going to happen is the gun's going to pick up the round, and the recoil spring will send the slide forward. So when the recoil spring is getting tired, when it is sending the slide forward, especially at that very last bit, it will be slightly open, like so. That is enough to leave more space in there, especially when I have a tired striker spring, for the light strike to occur. And this is when you're getting two things. Your dimple on the primer will be off center, or the primer will be bulged a little bit. And you can clearly see that on this specific primer I'm showing you now. So this is the primer I picked up after one of my Glocks, but specifically, if you look at those primers, so this is from production, this is from production optics, how they look now after I've changed both springs. So the only thing it took is actually to figure out how many rounds I put through those guns. And conservatively, I would say about 20,000 each, but realistically, more like 25 to 30. And according again to the link I've shared, you need to swap out those springs every 5,000 rounds. So I can say that 5,000 rounds may be a bit extreme, but 10 to 15, I'd say, yeah, now I will keep track and I will be replacing those springs. The only thing about the spring kit specific to action is, according to action rules, every safety feature of the gun needs to be operational, and the trigger pull has to be more than 3.5 pounds. And I'll show you how I measure trigger pull on the Glock. It is a bit tricky, especially compared to 1911, and I'll explain why. This is what the 1911 trigger looks like. And the way it works is, the best way to understand the trigger pull is that on 1911, when you pull the trigger, it only ever travels in this direction. If you say, and the best way we know from physics is to apply the force is in this direction. And this is how normally, and I will show it using my left hand, how your finger would operate. And it doesn't really matter if you apply that pressure to the top of the trigger or the bottom of the trigger. It is going to be the same consistent trigger pull that's going to break it. Doesn't really matter, right? So when I measure the trigger pull on the 1911, for argument's sake, I would rest it flat, I would zero the gauge, and push the grip safety and just pull using the center of the trigger, and this is the reading I'm getting. So I'm getting 2.8 pounds. Okay? So if I, for some reason, not pulled by the center of the trigger, pulled by the bottom of the trigger, chances are I'll get the same measurement. So this is the Glock trigger assembly. And the way the Glock trigger assembly works is, it is a lever. So you've got the center point, and if you apply your pressure low enough, you're getting a lot more leverage compared to if you apply pressure somewhere in the middle of the trigger. So what that tells us, that of course by the rule book we would need to measure that trigger pull somewhere in the middle, like so. But you probably can't see what happens here is that safety tab is not getting particularly pressed. So in order to press that safety tab, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to pull here, but then at the same time apply the pressure just to that safety tab. So what we're going to do is we're going to reset the gauge, apply pressure to the safety tab, and pull the middle off the trigger, and hopefully it is going to break. Yeah, the safety tab is not pressed. I know it broke. It broke. It. Geez, can't believe it. 5.8 pounds, and that is with competition spring. This is what happens when you pull that trigger in the middle. So you're actually working against a lot of force. That is why you need to ride, and I personally ride my finger as low as I can. And down there, let me just measure it for you, what the reading is going to be. You're actually getting to almost 3 pounds. But again, when they measure it at competition, they measure it at the center point. The actual kit comes with 3 springs. The striker spring, then the trigger spring, which again, if you're shooting action, I strongly recommend you do not touch and do not use. So this particular spring will reduce your trigger pull below 3.5 pounds that are required for action, for production and for production optics. And also what it will do, it will stop your safety features on your gun functioning properly. So that tab, that is a safety feature, will become very, very dull and will not prevent your gun from firing without pressing on the tab. So that feature will no longer be working properly. You need to be mindful of that. So I only ever would change the striker spring, which is the large one, and then the firing block spring, which is the smaller one. Let me get it out of this plastic bag so I don't drop it. So that's the one I'm talking about. Here we are. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe. We are on YouTube and Rumble, and I will bring you updates from KV Cup very, very shortly.